morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Carly, Chief Exec here at DIA. There'll be another familiar face you'll undoubtedly recognise, possibly more so than mine this morning on your screen, and that is Graham Hooper from Try Coaching, who's going to share with us his undoubted expertise on coaching and driver education this morning. You'll also see Tom Foster with us, who is our training and development manager, and he'll help to keep us running smoothly and prompt us to move on with things when we need to. And our other resident expert on all things driver training, Howard Redwood, who is another familiar face to you all. So hope you're all safe and well out there and starting to enjoy that little bit more freedom that we're starting to see more now, and also enjoying being back at work as well. Right, so shall we kick off with the kind of questions that we're going to pose to Graham this morning to kind of stimulate the discussion? So Graham, I suppose, you know, a big question that people have, and you might answer this in a completely different way to the question, is when do you coach and when do you instruct? And really, what are the differences, I suppose?
Okay, I suppose really what sets us apart from general coaching is that we coach in a safety critical environment. And because we coach in a safety critical environment, it's essential that we must be able to instruct at times. Well, there is a choice, it's instruct or die. There is an option for people, but I would suggest that what happens is the coaching is at the side of the road, because that's where the learning actually takes place. And the practice takes place on the road. So, and once you've got on the road, you must stop and then, for want of a better word, coach, so that they can reflect upon their experiences, learn from it, ask the simple 3 questions: what went well, what didn't go so well, how would you like to improve moving forward? And then you have a discussion, a negotiation, and then you go round, just for argument's sake, we go round the block again, yeah? And then you pause and repeat. Because if you think about it, and I'm a prime example, multitasking, try doing something, yeah? Try just doing a simple task while somebody else is telling you what to do or asking you questions. So I'd like you to imagine that you were trying to juggle 3 balls, yeah, in the air. So I'm teaching you to juggle 3 balls in the air, and I say, chuck it up with the left, catch it with the right, chuck it up with the left, catch it with the right. You've already dropped your balls. So it's important that, you know, a lot of the time that, you know, if you want to look at the difference between coaching and instruction on the move, the coach is quiet. The instructor is talking. And that's the fundamental difference. You're going to instruct, though, in safety critical incidents. So, and that's a decision that you have to make. I mean, if it's dangerous, you're going to instruct. Then you have this one, the potential danger. Shall I intervene or not? And that's a question only you, the ADI, can answer at that moment of time. Because if you've agreed that you're not going to intervene and you're going to let them have a go, you must assess that situation. And if it has potential danger, for example, potential danger is coming out of a road and not looking, if you know it's absolutely clear and there is actually no danger, you have to make the decision whether you're going to interfere beforehand, because if they're not looking, it's potentially dangerous, or you're going to allow them to do it. It depends then on what the goal of the lesson is. If the goal of the lesson was just about speed on approach, you might manage those observations even though they're potentially dangerous. So, and it's our skill as a driving instructor that there isn't an answer which is black and white in that situation.
Yeah. I think there's the situation analysis about when to coach, when to instruct. And obviously risk mitigation would say sometimes, as you say, you have to instruct. Is there a client-centered approach as well in that, you know, and I'm thinking of 2 scenarios here, which I'll just throw at you. The pupil who just doesn't respond to coaching and has to be told or instructed, and also a kind of approach that will differ perhaps with fleet and full license holding.
Okay, let me do the first one, Carly, because I can't hold on to the second one. Yeah. So I was already, so the first question, and I know some ADIs might find this difficult. I've never met anyone I can't coach. And the reason is that even if they wanted instructing, that would have been a coaching conversation in the first place to decide that instruction is what they want. But, and this is the huge but, you have to stop instructing. How can someone drive? And when I say drive, I always think in a post-tested scenario, people can't drive if they have to be instructed.
Mm.
So you have to coach. Yeah, there is no instruction actually fundamentally doesn't work, because when you drive in a post-test environment, the person is responsible for their own driving and their own safety. And as long as you're instructing, you're not giving that person responsibility or raising their self-awareness or allowing them to make decisions.
Yeah.
And so you don't create a thinking driver.
No, and I suppose that's why actually coaching is important, even in safety critical situations, that if you've got the timeline to allow you to coach them to the answers in terms of spotting the risk and how to mitigate it, then coaching is still important, even in safety critical, because they'll never be able to make decisions themselves and manage them if they're waiting for someone, subconsciously to always tell them what to do and think for them.
And there's automatically a delay. I mean, driverless instructors will know this. Say if you're waiting at a junction, like a busy roundabout, and the client says, "Can I go now?" Now, the answer might have been yes, but by the time you've responded and say yes, so if you did respond and say yes, by the time they've computed it from their head down to their feet and their hands, you're going, stop, because they've had to think about your your answer. So there at that moment in time, if someone asks, "Can I go now?" you have to throw it back. It's your decision. And if you've negotiated risk management, you would say, "I will stop you if it's the wrong decision."
Yeah.
But I'm allowing you to make that decision in the moment, because otherwise, how the hell are they ever going to make a decision?
And I think that is a safety critical point, in that if we look at some of the data in novice driver collisions, they will often be at junctions, and it will not because of overconfidence, i.e. just completely running over the junction at speed. It will actually be someone who has sat at the junction for a very long time, questioning when they should move, traffic piling up behind them, and being panicked into making the decision. So if you can instill that confidence in decision making around things like junctions through coaching methodologies, then we shouldn't see those kind of panicked measures after they've and ahed for several minutes beforehand.
I suppose the whole mindset of me as a coach is, what are you going to do in post-test scenarios? I do not have a test mindset at all. There is a time for honing towards a test, closer to the test, but they already can drive then. It's about just learning test techniques. But that's about them managing their mindset, their self-beliefs and their confidence. And that's different, but that's still coaching. But you're not from the word go, first lesson, you coach. And I'll explain a little bit more, because I think there was a question about that. Do you want, in fact, to someone, do you want me to explain?
Yeah, start on that, because I think what my next question on that two-parter was going to be about coaching being more appropriate to full license holders, and particularly occupational drivers, because they won't respond to being taught and instructed. They're adults now, and they don't get told what to do in many ways, whereas younger drivers are used to being in an instructional environment and a teaching in a traditional sense environment, so don't respond as negatively to it. But we can go on to that one, because I think your next point is more aligned to the kind of novice driver, learning to drive.
Yeah, I mean, I think when fundamentally, I suppose, can the trainer, in terms of coaching, start from the beginning of their training? And it's all about coaching starts from day one. You just, even with a simple statement like, you're sitting next to me, day one, this is their first meeting, when you pass your test, how will your life change? because what you're then doing is tapping in to their motivation, whether that's extrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation. You're tapping into that. And then the next thing is, it's lesson one. We're going to move, you're teaching them, you might have to instruct them to move away, but you want to go, your decision when we move, and you're going to need, so they have to make a decision. Not, okay, more, do everything robotic. You're going to negotiate. What can you do? What help? I would just say, what do you think you can do? Do you know what most people say when, when I was teaching learners full time? Most people said to me, can I have a go myself? And then I suppose on the bad lessons, then I go, okay, so we're going to say we were back to the turn in the road for argument's sake. What's the best thing I can do for you when you have a go at turning the car around? And the answer would invariably come back, shut up, Graham. And that's just having that conversation. I think the problem that we have as ADIs, it's a good problem, but it is a problem for us to reflect on ourselves, is that we're serial helpers. And we think that telling someone what to do will help them. And fundamentally, it won't help them. Because as a coach, there is a belief that learning comes from within. And if you're telling someone, you're pouring in that information, well, the cup overfloweth, as someone once said. So that's my point when we're starting away. It starts from day one. At the end of the road, what way do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, it creates accountability, doesn't it, as well? Whereas instruction can lead to an abdication of accountability and responsibility. And that's, possibly where we have had historical problems with novices going on the road and panicking merely from the fact that there isn't somebody to tell them what to do in the left-hand seat.
Yep. Statement. One of the statements I would make potentially is, okay, you're in the driving seat. You are now the driver. You are responsible for this vehicle. Not me. You are responsible. What does that mean to you? Because a lot of learners actually think the instructor's responsible. It's down to them. And so if you're asking that question on day one, it's automatically, I said, if I've got 4 ball tires, yeah, you're getting 12 points at least, and potentially a ban. Yeah, it's not, but it's your car. You're the driver. Is this car fit and proper to move away? That's the law. And so what we're doing from a coaching point of view straight away is getting them to accept responsibility and to abdicate from the instructor, really. Because as long as it's about the relationship. Instructor relationship, I can't see when my camera is all right. Instructor relationship is hierarchical. Coaching relationship is equal. And that's fundamentally the difference. So I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, I think that's good. It's important. And yeah, my next question was just going to be on this. When to coach, when to instruct. I suppose for my money, going back to that question of full license holders and particularly occupational driver training, coaching works best because as adults, we don't really like to be told what to do anymore. We perceive that instruction will be that. So we get into the car with a bit of an attitude already, and coaching can help break down some of those barriers.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I work with Dr. Lisa Dawn at Cranfield University delivering workshops and coaching workshops to corporations, and they include the police, which is and it's an institution, and so people are institutionalized. So that can be quite difficult to break down those barriers from a coaching point of view, because people are resistant quite often to change as well. But I think coaching, when I was studying coaching at university, I had 2 tutors, Dr. Jonathan Passport and Dr. Christian van Nieuwenburg, and they both said to me, really, coaching is a way of being. And but they said at this stage, you're still becoming. So I think that's an interesting thing, and I think that's an interesting. But we could drift off into life now. Are we a way of being, or are we a way of becoming? But that's another 10-day debate.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now, this is a question that's actually really pertinent at the moment because we're having the great debate in our international development that we do in things like the Middle East, where the trainer that comes to us for accreditation to be able to deliver occupational training will not necessarily be at the same standards as an ADI. So we're not just talking about ADIs who've already had that grounding, already had that training to UK standards and is developing into fleet by way of a fleet qualification. We're talking about people who haven't been exposed to a good standard of initial basic training. And I think there's almost a counter argument to what we're saying here, in that some organisations who have become overly enamoured, perhaps, of coaching being the solve all of all ills in driver education, and I know you're not of that camp. You're of the toolbox and different approaches at different times. Are trying to sell in to providers over there that everybody should be operating at this level and we should train the trainers correspondingly. But if you've got a very intermediate or basic level of training knowledge and skill, can you just leap people in as trainers? Now I'm talking about train the trainer into coaching methodologies, or do we need to teach them how to instruct first in the basics?
Well, that's such a huge question because we also have something thrown into the mix. There is cultural differences as well, which is huge, and the way things function in cultures, because it was a bit like me talking about being institutionalized. If the culture is hierarchical, then that's an interesting thing. I think fundamentally, you have to start with upskilling the trainer. That's where it starts, and that can be a real big challenge, because if the trainer's so underskilled, the question has to be asked, why are they delivering the training in the first place?
Well, exactly. I mean, we do a training needs analysis with any driving school out there that we're working with, and we wouldn't just slot them into a level 4 coaching course, because we know that there's a remedial training exercise first, because they don't even have the basics of a trainer. So I think it was in that universe, when is the time to start introducing them to coaching concepts? And I suppose in the PDI universe, do you start that from day one, that approach, or do you look at getting the basic foundation stones of instruction in first?
Day one, because you want to tap into their belief system as well, even the trainer's belief system, because their belief system will ultimately influence the training that they deliver, because they will have a cognitive bias towards that training. So you have to introduce that coaching, because they have to, if you're training and you're training in a safety critical environment, which is driving is, you need to gather insights into the personality and the emotional state of the person who's sitting next to you, because that has a huge effect on how they're going to perform. Look, if we go back to the learner driver market, your pupil turns up knackered, tired. Yeah. Now, I know some instructors will decide to send them home because they're not fit to drive. My view would be, what a great opportunity for a learning opportunity for them to experience how it feels to drive tired, and how that compares and contrasts to when they're fit, alert, and focused. Because otherwise, I'm just telling you, oh, you can't do this. You're too tired to do this. Well, adults don't learn that way, and our clients are basically adults. Adults make decisions for themselves fundamentally, and we may argue that they're influenced by their parents. And my argument was, when I was growing up, I'm not sure many of my teenagers friends were that influenced by their parents. So they were all in rebel stage, So yeah, but we do have cultural differences where beliefs may be, I will live my life by the grace of God, and I will drive by the grace of God. Yeah, that's a huge task.
Yeah.
And I know that is in some cultures embedded.
Yes. Yeah, we do. Yeah, that is an issue and a challenge that we see in those kind of Middle Eastern territories in particular. So it can't be a one size fits all, moving them to the upper levels of the GDE straight away approach, because some of them can't even do the basics of the lower levels when they first start in the
Well,
training.
I sort of slightly disagree, because I think you can. In fact, coaching, you see, it's understanding that we're not just teaching a skill. It is the fact that in driving, our thoughts and feelings will deter our behaviour, and they're all intricably. What's the word? Intricably. Well, anyway, it's one of them words beginning by N, all linked together, and they go backwards and forwards. It doesn't go round in a circle. Our behaviour influences our emotions, and our emotions influence our behaviour, and our emotions influence our thoughts, and our thoughts influence, and so everything is linked together. And so we use an analogy of a three-legged stool. So if you have a three-legged stool and you don't deal with, you have thoughts, feelings, and the behaviour is the skill set. If you take one of them away, what happens to the stool?
Falls over.
So I believe that we have to, from day one, deal with all three, because otherwise you're building a stool that will fall over. Because once they have the skill set, they won't be able to manage their thoughts and feelings that go with that skill set. And then fundamentally, they can't drive, because driving is far more than a skill set. I was talking to somebody the other day, a friend of mine, about Formula One drivers, and he did make it to Formula One. He did only do half a lap, but that is some fantastic achievement. And most of them haven't even got a driving license. Because they've got a racing license, but they haven't got a driving license. They don't drive.
Yeah, because they go up through the lower formulas, don't they, as kids, yes, and the karting formulas, and they go straight into the profession and start receiving training from the profession on the track, don't they?
Yeah. But that doesn't transpire to driving on a public road.
No.
And there's a great story that my friend tells about a race that he had on public streets from Paris to the south of France with Ayrton Senna, in a Citroen, was it a C5? One of them, yeah. They both had Citroen C5s. They had their girlfriends with them, and they decided that they would race each other. It's not a safe thing to do. It's not emotionally responsible. It's not, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, but it's a great and entertaining story when he tells it. And so I suppose the point is that the higher levels of the GDE matrix actually flow down into the lower levels of the GDE, and the lower levels of the GDE actually build up to the higher. So it's all, again, it's not a hierarchical. The GDE is not 1, 2, 3, 4, and some people say 5. It's actually a combination all the time.
And I think that's when you expose that somebody, it doesn't really understand the GDE, and that's worrying when it comes at a very high level, because the other organisation I'm talking about keeps going and telling people that we train at the highest levels only of the GDE, and that's why we're great. And you're like, no, you clearly don't understand it. That it's an holistic approach, and it's actually interchangeable as well, and that's the client-centered nature of it as well. So you can't just go in and say, it's not like the old GE management Sigma 6. I'm at the highest level because I'm at level 6. It's not about that at all, and that's where I think people get confused about how to use it.
And also the three levels of, like, your knowledge and understanding, your risk increasing factors, and the most important one for me in our market and in any market that we're in driver training, self-evaluation tools, because that runs all the way through each level of the GDE, and it is fundamental.
Yeah,
because that's what we're doing with our learner drivers, is actually giving them the ability to self-evaluate, because when they pass their test, and they will have a near miss, they've got to be able to work that out for themselves.
Yeah.
And if we haven't given them skills, because that's what you do as a coach, is you give them skills, it's putting them under huge pressure.
Yeah, and that's where the coaching in the business world is doing the same job. It's actually enabling people to make decisions and be confident in their decisions and make the right decisions. It's not telling them what to do.
the coaching word is empowerment. I think, we empower people, but I don't like to say we empower people because actually the person empowers themselves. But that's what the coaching does, is gives that ability for someone to take decisions. I think the problem with being a driving instructor is actually we're taking your job away from you as a coach. Yeah. Okay, I just see a question.
Yeah. So should we go
Pop
into
up.
questions for a moment?
Yeah, maybe we'll deal with that afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So should we move to, the why this question doesn't work? What your favourite question, isn't it, Graham? What do you want to do today?
What do you want to do today? I don't know. You tell me. You're the driving instructor. I think the easiest way to think about that is to use what I would use a coaching model called T-Grow. Most people may know about the GROW model, but T-Grow still leaves you, the instructor, with choosing the topic so that you still can cover most of the syllabus. And so with you choosing the topic, and let's just say, right, we've chose crossroads. Yeah. So what I want to know, first of all, is the coaches, what do you know about crossroads? And then, okay, so, and then I'm asking the question next is, okay, so if we were going to go off and to do crossroads today, what would be the things that you really want to learn? What concerns you the most? And, that's going to form the goal of the lesson. Yeah. Invariably, it's turning right. Invariably, that's will be the goal of the lesson. I want to feel more confident turning right at junctions and understanding when I can turn, and I use our terminology, but it's not theirs, near side to near side and offside to offside. They usually say, when I don't know whether my dad says you've always got to go around the back, but I've seen him cut across. How do I decide? Well, then you've got to start to get a goal of the lesson, because there's 4 fundamental principles that make that decision. And so, would you like me to teach you? I'm not going to do that. Would you like me to help teach you the 4 fundamental principles? And by the end of the lesson, you will be able to decide which one is appropriate at that moment in time. We've got a goal. Yeah, that's the goal. Off we go. But if we ask what do you want to do today, they're never going to come up with that.
Well, people feel uncomfortable in that kind of scenario. Like it's like the end. It's almost like if we can put ourselves in a kind of shoe that we all may have sat at one time or the other. When you go for an interview for a job, and you might have written down a lot of questions, but you're in that scenario where your mind suddenly goes blank and you don't really know what to ask when they say, have you got any questions? And even when you're given choice, sometimes you're flummoxed by the choice. And it puts people in a nervous position. So that's where it can be a bit unhelpful. I'm going to go to the question from one of the panelists, one of the people, because it relates, I suppose, to the bottom 2 questions, actually. Client centre is not doing what the clients want to do. The reason, when the wheels are turning, they're not learning. Teresa said she's obviously a fan of coaching, and she gets its benefits.
I know Teresa very well.
And she said, but she senses an impatience with pupils, that they don't think coaching is necessarily value for money. It's not what they've come here to do. Their expectations are different to what they should actually need to have rather than what they have. I suppose it's how do we market coaching to our pupils?
I don't tell them. Simple. I don't tell people that I'm going to coach them. I just do coach them, so they don't have to buy into anything. That is, because if we think about, there's this argument, coaching versus instruction. Well, I don't think like coaching is my umbrella. I coach. Underneath that umbrella, I have every tool available to me for the client, every single tool. It's not I instruct and coaching is a tool. Sorry, you can't coach. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, you coach, and then you have every tool in the toolbox available to you. If you instruct and then go, oh, I'm going to coach now, you can't coach. The key to coaching is about coaching rapport, not in what I call instructional rapport. Is, more along the lines of, oh yeah, tell me about your interests. Oh yeah, I'm a doctor. Oh yeah, I've been to the doctors. Blah, blah. Coaching, it's not that sort of rapport. Rapport with coaching is about your body language being open. It's about eye contact. It's about smiling. It's about engaging. It's about listening. It's about using your intuition. And we've got there's 5 levels of listening that you can go through. We have conversational listening when we're down the pub, and actually we don't listen to anyone. We just want to put our point across. To a listening which is deep, where we're listening not only to the words, but we're listening to the tone, we're listening to the body language, but often we're listening to the silence as well. And that really gains you the rapport with the client to coach come what may. If you lose the rapport, you lose the learning, and they won't learn. Because you think about it, if your rapport's broken down with a client, they can't learn. They're too busy getting emotionally upset with you, the instructor. They won't say anything. So your job as the instructor from day one is to build a coaching rapport with the client and to practice those coaching skills. Simple ones like, and you've got to be adept at this, but mirroring and matching. That helps. Open body language, not closed body language. Even if your client is closed, you can mismatch and open your body language. So, and it's a skill that really, I think when I go back to, I've been coaching since I was 18 in some form or another. I am still learning. It is the subject is huge because it goes into psychology and philosophy, mindset. It is just, and driving instructors know that actually one of their jobs, and it shouldn't be, is counsellor. Yeah. Now, the thing about counsellors is they shouldn't counsel, but they should coach. And coach is about moving forward. Counselling is usually about dealing with the past. If you're a skilled coach, you can usually solve some of the stuff that's gone in the past by looking forward. But if you're not a skilled coach, I would not go backwards. I would only go forwards.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. What are the coaching fails? Because you spend a lot of time in a train the trainer scenario when it comes to coaching. What are the failings that you see? The big no-no. Well, not big no-nos, but what do you see people doing that is unhelpful, shall we say, to them and possibly their pupils as well?
I ask too many bloody questions. I think the biggest one I see when people say to, they're coaching is they're like a machine gun. Remember when you asked me 2 questions?
They couldn't cope.
I couldn't cope. I was trying to think about the first one, and you asked me the second one, and I was forgetting the first one and not understanding the second one. So that sort of approach, when you ask too many questions and you haven't had time to listen, I suppose what I see, and in a starting point, it's useful. As a coach, you could prepare coaching questions. But actually, I never know, apart from maybe the opening question, I actually don't know what my next question is going to be at all until I've listened to the client. And then the secret, and this is what I don't see people do, is to pause, take a breath, think about their answer, potentially repeat that answer back to them, and then ask the next question. And then once you've gone through a series of questions, what you're going to do then is go paraphrase. Okay, so if I'm right, because you need to understand as the coach, especially in the safety critical environments, if I'm right, you mean blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's my interpretation of your thinking. The other way is to summarize and go, okay, so what you've said is bang, 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 bang. And so that's their interpretation. And then they go, I didn't say that. Because it's interesting, people don't listen to themselves.
Yes.
When they speak, they say things and they go, I didn't know when I've done in-car coaching, we have a coach, an observer, and a coachee, and I'll be the facilitator. Sometimes we will record the conversation, and then when someone goes, I didn't say that, we'll go, okay, let's pause, out of roll, let's go back. Who's that voice then? Because our environment is safe to, it's a safe environment for everyone to make mistakes. Yeah. That's where the learning comes from without being belittled. Yeah. Because we have to be honest and open. I could, some people accuse coaching of being pink and fluffy, which makes me smile because I don't think anyone would say I'm a pink and fluffy coach.
No.
But coaching is on a spectrum as well, from directive coaching to indirective coaching. So you can do both, and it depends on the matter. But going back to, people are not aware of what they say. So one of the skills of a coach is to just simply repeat back what they've said, so that they can listen to their own words. And then, what happens when people listen to their own words? They start to work things out for themselves. What we have to do as the coach is go.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think, we're going to move on to the next discussion point in a moment, but in that listening vein, what I've learned as a consultant, working with lots of different types of businesses, and I still do, as well as running DIA full time, I still keep my hand in doing some consultancy because it helps me learn as well, is what you can learn and by listening before you even meet them. So I will often send questionnaires to clients. I'll also do my research online. So in financial investment terms, we call it KYC, know your clients, where you gather as much information as you can about somebody before you even go and meet them. And do you think that would be, that's a useful process in coaching, getting to know your pupils beforehand with a few key questions, so you can start to think about, when you get in the car with them for the first time, what are going to be some of those approaches you'll take?
It depends who's answering those questions, because if you start to investigate them and their parents answer those questions, or their peers, or you're already influenced. So when you become influenced about this person you're going to meet, and we know parents do that, they phone up and they go, you've got Johnny today, he's got ADHD and he's got blah, 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 and he's dyslexic and dyspraxic. Well, you wouldn't have had a clue if they hadn't have told you. And then you're looking for those traits rather than, the person actually doesn't need, you don't even need to know whether they're dyslexic or dyspraxic or got ADA, because you're just going to deal with the person. And every single person is individual. So once we start putting labels on them, we've boxed them in. This is how I expect them to behave. And so it gets difficult then to coach, because you're coaching from a judgmental point of view, and you need to discover that for yourself. But on the other flip side, having a conversation with the pupil directly, then yes, I think that can be very useful.
Yeah. Okay. Can coaching help speed up learning? I know some people say we don't want to speed up learning, but can it help?
I mean, everyone wants to speed up learning now. Yeah.
But can it expedite the learning process?
Okay. Yeah. I think what I notice, and this is coaching initially can be a slower process initially. Over the length of time, it's far quicker. Because what coaching does, and we know in young people that their frontal lobe is developing. Coaching is speeding up those neural pathways, those decision making. So even though it may take a little bit longer in the beginning, by the end, their decision making's there. Whereas we know that if we're not doing that, when someone goes in the old fashioned world, when we jump from full instruction to, let's say we've been teaching someone and today we're going to give you a short assessment. You're going to drive around the block. It's a 5-minute drive. You've been given them full instruction and you pull it and you go, okay, you drive around the block, and you see them just go and crumble. Well, you've probably spent 12 hours getting to that stage. if you've been coaching, you will be always giving them responsibility to experiment and do things on their own from day one. So when you get to that, it's not a new experience.
Yeah.
And so what happens then, we have the old fashioned way where, it was traditional to full instruct, to prompt and guide, and then to pull the dummy out, shall we say, and leave the dummy to drive themselves, which I don't mean that like detrimentally, but what we've done then is, why would we expect someone who has not made a decision from themselves because they've been fully instructed, guided and prompted, now you're independent to make those decisions? And of course what happens is they don't make those decisions, and coming into the test they're not used to making decisions. And so invariably when someone goes on a test, and I know the fundamental reason I get that people fail is because they're nervous. Now, the fundamental reason people fail is because they can't drive, because they can't cope with the decision-making process, because they're nervous, because they're not confident enough. Now there will be exceptions to the rule. Yeah, there is always exceptions, but generally speaking, if you spend your time training towards a post-test environment and then just drive the car and go, what about the test? I go, no, don't do the test. You do the test, you fail. Just drive the car safely and sensibly and bring it back in one piece, and I guarantee you'll pass the test, because you can drive. Just go and drive. Don't think about it. If you start thinking about what the examiner wants to see, you're not thinking about what you're doing. Yeah. You just drive my car, bring it back for me.
Yeah, I do agree, Graham. The statistics bear it out. Some of the false analysis bears it out as well, down to that granularity of detail. Some of the discussions you have with people is that there are definitely those who suffer from stage fright type nerves. Yeah. And that is very difficult to work with. And you will have trained them to their best ability. And they get it actually about driving, but they can't get over their stage fright moment. But then the flip side of that is there's an awful lot of excuses being made for actually the pupil is ill prepared, and that is why they're so nervous, and that's why they're struggling with that test on that day.
Well, I think
that's deflection on the part of the trainer in some respects.
I was told last night that my local test centre, their pass rate is now down to 42%. Oh, it's disgraceful, in my opinion. I mean, if you think about this, if we weren't driving instructors, and someone come along to you and said, oh, give me anything between give me £2,000, yeah, and I'm going to teach you to a skill. But actually, when you get there and you're tested, you've got a 50-50 chance of passing. I'm going, oh, no, give me £2,000 back. I don't want to give it to you.
And also, what I'm going to say to you as the person who's taken that money off you when you fail is this trite statement: I can't be responsible for what you do on the day. Well, you are responsible, because you took their money to provide a service to deliver that better result for them.
Because and this is what the difference, what coaching does is build that responsibility. You don't even have to go there. They've already taken responsibility and ownership for their own learning.
It actually delivers a better product and better value to the consumer. The marketeer, and we obviously talk in these terms, but I do think we do have to start thinking about these things in terms of products and services and value, because we've got to be responsible about what we're providing to people, and coaching delivers more long-term intrinsic value to the customer as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the DVSA national standards, clearly say 6.6.3 or 6.3, I can't remember. It's one of them anyway. It's in roll 6. Clearly says coach. When I look at coaching and client-centered learning from the industry, and we've been it's been in the standards check for 5 years now, is it? Mm. Yeah, and we're still instructing. Why? We're 5 years into this, and we're sitting here today having a debate about coaching.
Yeah.
Why haven't we all embraced it?
I think we could debate that endlessly, but I think we know one of the answers to that problem is that coaching, like many elements that you need to actually do the real job, is not in the initial training pathway. So, until we put these things into the initial training pathway, we won't get the kind of it's died into them, so they can't train the trainers still training the trainee in the same way, and then the result will be the trainee will still be the same way. So the curriculum has to change for the trainers themselves.
I know that our Try Coaching Instructor Train product was in some ways the reason that the DVSA got coaching and client-centered learning over the line, because they had to prove to the powers that be that people were actually doing it. So they used us as an example that coaching and client-centered learning can work in the instructor market, and that was the bit that created the shift, because we already knew that, and we're going back to Skinner and behaviourism and Pavlov's dog and operant conditioning. And I suppose as driving instructors, what I'm talking about, and I'm trying to make this simple, if you know about Pavlov's dogs, they dribbled by the sound of a bell. Well, dogs don't dribble when they hear a bell, but that was an association with food. So I'm going out, this is old school, and I'm sure no one does this anymore, right? So you're going out on a test, and you say to your pupil, when the examiner speaks, you check your mirrors. Hello, John, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. At the end of the road, turn left. And we've conditioned, because what we've done is that we know that we have an activating event that gives a response, and the reward will be, if you check your mirrors, you will pass your test. That is old-fashioned behaviourism, and that works in the animal kingdom. If you're training dogs or horses, then a behaviourism approach works. But we're humans.
Yeah.
And we're not animals. Well, there's another debate, but anyway.
Terry makes a good point on this point, that coaching is still evolutionary, and we've got a deep-seated, almost default reaction where we've been instructed, and that's how actually education more widely has been. We've been taught, we've been schooled, and actually that holds us back as human beings in many ways. We go into the workplace, and at first we don't know how to behave like the other adults around us, because we're waiting for somebody to tell us what to do. You see that sadly sometimes with graduates. You employ graduates, and if they haven't had work experience during their degree, they are hard to manage, because they've got theoretical knowledge about the business, but they haven't got practical knowledge of how a business operates on a daily basis and how they're supposed to integrate with that business.
And they haven't got the soft skills.
Yeah.
They haven't got the communication. Well, if I go back to, let's take driving instructor training, okay? Traditionally, someone says, I know, I'm really busy. That's the world at the moment, in our field. I'm really busy. I need someone to help me. I'm going to teach someone to become a driving instructor. So what they do then, and pardon my French, is they repeat the same crap training that they were given to their client. Well, actually, that was probably PST based or instructional based, and they repeat it because actually I don't know what to give them otherwise. And so coaching, I mean, I'll go back to our product is coaching and client-centered learning from module 1, and it's a 12-module course, and that starts to teach the PDI how to coach and be client-centered from the get-go.
And that needs what's happening. It's not a case of with learner pass rates, with driver pass rates and driver issues. It's not a case of chicken and the egg. Which one came first? Is it the trainer or is it the trainee? We have to go back to the actual origins, which is the training of the trainers, because if we don't get that right, we'll never get the trainee to do the right things either. So that's why I think it's really important that we look at coaching being part of the training pathway in the first place.
Yeah, and I think it's for people to have a better understanding of coaching, because I think today is very useful for helping us maybe have a better understanding, but also the fact that we will use things like, and I know driving instructors don't like big words like trans-theoretical model of behavioural change, but actually if I explain it, it's quite straightforward and simple because I can't use big words. So it is a simple process, but those processes are what we use as a coach. We take someone from what they don't know to what they do know, to what they can plan, to what they can put into action, to what they can maintain.
Yeah.
And that's a simple coaching
Just
process.
conscious of time. I mean, so we kind of covered this in a way as well. Coaching techniques being part of your toolbox of teaching and learning strategies. That coaching is an opportunity, isn't it, to add to your toolbox from what is actually quite a rudimentary and basic toolbox sometimes when they come out of their PDI training.
I suppose, not being too long about this, basic coaching stuff, we can use mind mapping, scaling, conversational coaching, scenarios, and reframing is very useful. They're useful for what I call the pits and the pets, performance interfering thoughts, changing them into performance enhancing thoughts, and reframing conversations. So, okay, you're saying you don't know what to do in this situation. If you reverse the situation, what if I was sitting in your situation? What would you tell me? And again, allow them time to think. Or look, there's someone sitting on the roof of the car listening to this conversation. What would they say if they heard this? And so that's simple coaching techniques that we can use in our driver training all the time.
Yeah. And what would be what are your secrets in terms of goal setting, Graham?
I think I've already said, actually, and it's just rapport. Rapport is the secret of goal setting, because we will all have the client who doesn't want to talk. Well, they don't want to talk, generally speaking, because they don't trust. They're unsure. They don't want to be belittled. They don't want to be told that that's the wrong answer. So if we get rapport and we have a trusting environment where there is no, one of the things I will say to people, right, the mistakes, every time we make a mistake, we're going to have a party. Because every time we make a mistake, it's a learning opportunity. So yes, good, right, we're going to learn something now. So let's just change that mental. I hate faults. Fault-focused approach. If you think, oh, you've done that wrong and you've done that, I mean, if you come from my world, by the end of it, I want to punch your lights out. Yeah, because why you keep telling me I want help. Yeah, I don't want to be, oh, well, you've got that wrong, you've got that wrong, you've got wrong. Well, what you should have done is that, what you should have done is that. Well, actually ask me what I think I could have done.
Yeah.
If I had another go. Yeah.
And package it as a learning moment. It's not a mistake, it's a learning moment.
And that one, I know what you're thinking. Yeah. And yeah, no, I can tell what you're feeling. You can never tell what someone is thinking and feeling. But as a coach, you can use your intuition and delve deeper without saying, I know what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because we've all got it wrong. Body language mismatches. What they say and what their body language says is something different. So we have to then use our intuition. That's why I think if you look in the DVSA national standards, it talks so much about, and I think the fundamental flaw in PDI training is always looking at the learner.
Yeah.
They don't look at the learner. They look at the road. Well, that's not where the learning's taking place. And so we have to develop that skill of looking and questioning internally ourselves, and then asking, tell me what you're thinking at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether I can have a McDonald's. Oh, okay. Because you don't know what answer they're going to come out with. Yeah. And if you've got a rapport, you get random stuff, and the random stuff's great. Oh, would you like to go to McDonald's and listen? Yeah, I would. Okay, we'll bank that one. Let's come back to what should you be thinking about now? Oh, yeah, I should be thinking about the bus. It's going to pull over, isn't it? I said, well, is it? Okay, so they've already programmed themselves. Then they're expecting it to happen, and you're just bringing them back to the here and now.
Cool. I think that's good. Is there any more questions on the chat or in the questions at the moment, guys, that we haven't covered? Don't think so. In terms of just purely on the subject of coaching, I can see there is a question about something else, but we'll deal with that in a moment. But is there anything else that last thoughts, Graham, that you'd like to leave with people today in respect of coaching in driver education?
Yes, I suppose there is last thoughts. For me, look, continual professional development is ongoing. If we go back to the standards, and in role 5, I think it's role 5, it says that we should all embrace continued professional development. If we're going to move this industry away from the instructional-led industry, and it is still 95% that way, then we have to embrace change. And embracing change means that we have to embrace continued professional development for us to move forward. And that's not me because I sell continued professional development. That's what I tell myself. You know, I'm constantly striving to improve what I do. And I feel that, yeah, I know we can go through life and go, well, I'm making a living, it's okay. But I want to do things, and this is me, as best as I can do things. And of course, when I try to do things as best as I can do things, I make mistakes. Yeah. You know, I can see Teresa's asked a question, how do we change ADI's acceptance? I think we keep having conversations like this. Yeah. That's what we do. Yeah. People, what happens is that you know the model of a change, but I'll use the analogy of, you know, first of all, the water drips off the mountain and then becomes a stream and then becomes a brook and then becomes a river and then becomes a lake and flows into a bigger river and then flows into the ocean. That's CPD. That's what we've got to do. At the moment, we've still got a brook. We haven't even got a stream. We've still got a brook running down, but that's far more than what we had 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think also some of the arguments need to be a little bit tougher. And coaching is not necessarily about being fluffy. Sometimes it's about being tough with people, especially I find this in my consultancy role sometimes, and also dealing with ministers for road safety issues, things like that. Yeah. That you've got to cut down to the nuts and bolts. And if people are still deluding themselves to some extent and not doing the right things for their stakeholder or client base, you've got to go in hard. And one of the things I would say about CPD is that you are selling knowledge for a living. That is your product. And if you are not fine-tuning and updating that product, you are not servicing your clients properly and you're not providing value for money. And the other thing is, I'm going to say it, and people aren't going to like it, but the rank hypocrisy of saying that you don't want to pay for training when your entire raison d'etre as a professional is to sell education. So it's like saying, I don't want anybody else to be paid for what I do, but it's okay for me to charge money for that. And it's okay for me not to update that. And I don't apply that to the people sat in this room here because they're engaging. But we often hear this from people that why should I pay Graham Hooper and his crowd? Why should I pay DIA? It should all be free to me. Well, I'm not offering it for free to your pupils.
I want to answer this question in the chat from, I hope I've got the name right, Sadhina Patel. It would be nice. Oh, it's disappeared. What? I've lost it now. Where is it? Okay. It would be nice for the DVSA to pay for our CPD once in a while. Are you a small business owner? The answer, I presume, is yes. You run a small driving school. I don't know whether it's one or many. You run a business. Make your business pay for your CPD.
Yes.
The people that come to me and embrace CPD with us tend to be the people I know who are charging, well, between 35 and £50 an hour for their lessons. And people go, that can't be. Not in my area. And actually, yes, probably in your area. I mean, an area I know, there was a client of mine who was based up in Sunderland, and this was some years ago, ADI, and he was earning £70,000 a year then.
Yeah, I often get it as well, having worked in the medical legal arena, providing CPD. You often get ADIs trying to align themselves in one sense to being public sector workers who should get a lot more stuff for free, but enjoying still the benefits of operating private businesses without that working under the cost of a public sector environment. And there's this mythology that abounds that public sector individuals get all their training paid for free and that's how they progress. Well, actually, a lot of public sector individuals are getting a certain amount that is mandatory for their profession paid for, that is about managing risk more than anything else. But a lot of their CPD, they will pay out for themselves. Doctors will pay out for themselves to go out on additional CPD to improve what they can offer to patients, also improve their job prospects, quite frankly, those kind of things as well. So we've got to get over that. We're the most maligned industry in the world. No one helps us. We should have everything for free. Everyone else gets everything for free, because you're trying to align yourself with the sector you don't work in, which is the public sector, who don't necessarily get all this for free. And you're forgetting that there is this ability to invest in your own destiny by investing in CPD. And it's, if you don't want to think about it as CPD investment, think about it as product and service investment. You know, you've got to keep developing your product to be able to offer the best product and service to your customer. And that's what CPD is doing.
Absolutely. And, you know, the financial, I think the financial investment, all I will say to somebody is actually have a day off and come and do some CPD. You'll enjoy it. You know, that's the thing. You will enjoy it. You will get something out of it, because CPD is all about you, for you. It's not for the provider. It's for you to learn and develop and take what you want out of it. And what happens is your confidence builds, and it's no, it tends to be quite factual that those who invest their most in CPD tend to rise and make the most of this industry. Now, that's no coincidence. You know, I'll throw some names out there, but, you know, when I was on a coaching course over 10 years ago, who was on there? Lynn Barry, Jed Wilmot, John Farlam, I can't think of Susan McCormack, myself. But it's no coincidence that these people become household names in the industry, because they actually took time out and heavily invested in themselves.
Yeah.
And that pays back dividends.
Yeah.
A quick story about CPD. I did CPD, my very first piece of CPD 26 years ago in this industry, and it wasn't very good. But I met someone on that course who told me something about what they were doing, and that one conversation probably earned me, in the last 26 years, probably not far off £500,000. And that's because I was mixing with like-minded individuals. And what he told me was just absolutely, I didn't know that.
Exactly.
And that was just
I had exactly the same thing, Graham, about in 2005, 2006, where I did CPD conversation. I had over a cup of coffee with somebody. Guy said, you ought to try this. I tried it, and I earned an extra £40,000 that year.
Yeah, and I think there's the debate rages on. You know, how do we get people to value us as a profession? And I deliberately used the word profession there. And you know, I think one of the biggest things is people don't see the training and qualification process that goes into making ADIs in the first place, and that can lead to people devaluing what they do. It's when you say to people, you do realize there is a training process. They don't just get in a car one day and stick an L box on the top and go off and do it. And when you start having conversations with the public, which obviously is not, DIA isn't just an association for ADIs. We also spend a lot of time working with stakeholders outside, including the public, educating them as to what ADIs do and what they can do. And when you start saying that, you can see them have that I did not know that moment, which in marketing terms, marketers were always aiming for I did not know that moment, where you change the consumer's mindset and it perks their interest. And people start to say, well, what else do they do? And they say, well, a lot of them do CPD, and they start to value this as a profession more. So if everybody is on that journey of marketing the profession, if that's all we do alone, by demonstrating the investment that they make in their own training, then you know that's kind of a little bit of the battle being won on the ground, as well as that macro level. When we're going out, we're able to demonstrate that to people as well.
And also it gives us an opportunity to actually show the DVSA that we are professionals.
Yeah.
You know, that we do take this job seriously. And I think, you know, what do we want? Is this a profession, or is it a cottage industry that we do on the side?
Well, actually,
what do we want it to be?
Well, as you know, we always do the analogy, don't we? where we say to people, you know, name the top professions, and in those top professions, you can name people like pilots. And I always do the skit where I talk about being a pilot who gets on a plane and you're sat in the front, and I get on board and I say, I'm going to be flying you to Alicante today. Sit back and relax the ride. I haven't done any CPD or training in different ratings or different planes or on different routes for years. I just get on the plane and fly all the time. I'm a nervous flyer. I would get off that plane as a result of somebody telling me. Now, as a nervous flyer, I can trust a lot more and actually get on a plane because I do know the rigorous training regime that pilots have in and out of the sim all the time, having line trainers on many of their flights. Difficult landings have to be in the sim before you go and do them again and again. And that is not CPD. That is just the mandatory refresher.
I mean, Carly, this is nuts. How many people die on the roads? How many people die in planes?
Yeah.
This is nuts. Yeah, the number one killer of young people in the world is driving.
Yeah.
It's not anything else. It's just driving.
Mm.
So, and what do we do about it? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
In the terms of real change.
We see risk in other industries, like, for example, financial services. And we say one of the reasons we had that massive risk, i.e. the 2007 and 8 banking crash, is, yes, nefarious activities that you're never necessarily going to get rid of completely. But it was also because a lot of people weren't adequately trained and up to date in their skills and knowledge to spot the issues and do something about them. So that's why we mandate now 35 hours CPD a year for certain levels of financial advisor and professional, going across to CPC. We've actually started to do that with the driver with 35 hours mandatory training, but we get to our profession, the kind of chicken, as it were, and we don't do anything about, you know, making sure that they have that exposure to training.
Yeah, I think the question that I want to ask ADIs is, look, do you want to choose your CPD, or do you want your CPD to be enforced upon you, or do you want to just go home and have a cup of coffee, stick your head in the sand and your bum in the sky and hope everything will be all right? Because if we haven't learned anything in the last year, yeah, we should have learned one thing. This world changes in an instant. Yeah, what we think is the world today is not going to be our world tomorrow. Who is going to be best prepared for change? Those who continually professionally develop themselves, or those who are still working in processes which are 20 plus years old? Yeah,
I agree. Okay, well, I think that's been a really thorough and interesting discussion today. I think it's been great to get your insights on that as well, particularly as you're working with, you know, you can see it in practice with both the pupil, the end user, but also the trainer as well. If you, there's people on this call have already done some training either with us or with Try Coaching, you know, and DIA and Try Coaching aren't in competition particularly. I think it's a symbiotic relationship where we actually bring people over to Try Coaching. We recommend that people who want to advance their coaching knowledge definitely go to Try Coaching. And then it's why we don't actually offer higher level coaching ourselves, because, you know, there are already products and services out there that do that very well, and that's their focus. And by being able to focus, you produce a better product. So if we just flip to the last slide, obviously we do what I would say was I could be a good forerunner coach in many respects for going on to Graham's coaches. And what we do is we guide people off to Try Coaching off the back of this coach who want to develop their knowledge. So the Applied Coach approach, which is in the DIA Academy, it's available now. That's in 3 parts. It's self-guided online study. So realistically, if you want to have a look at the foundation principles and dip your toe into and be comfortable that, you know what you're doing with this to some degree to progress to other levels, that's a great starter, not undermining its benefits in its individual standing, but I do think it's a good precursor to then going in, engaging more fully and investing properly in Try Coaching, because you will see a return on investment, definitely, for sure. And you know, we have some really good testimonials for people who've been on Try Coaching programs, as well as you know, using the Applied Coach approach to segue their way into that.
Fine. I had to do it. I'm starting to work with the International Authority for the Professional Coaching and Mentoring, and I had to write something for them. They wanted to know how many testimonials have we got in the last year, and I had to go and look it up. 443 5-star testimonials and reviews of our training. And I just thought, blimey, where did they all come from? Because they just go into a system and onto the website. But yeah, we're very simple. Look, if we don't deliver to you, on day one, and you don't think it's for you, we just give you your money back. It rarely happens. But what I do know is if you look at the people who develop themselves again, most in this industry, they come through a CPD path. I mean, if I just look at the trainers that have worked with us through doing, Kev Field, Ray Seagrave, Sally Kerr, Phil Rubery, Terry Lefteri, there's so many out there. And they come, Ed Marshall, if I look at the some of the committee members, I think, oh yeah, they did our course. And I think those people who are household names are out there. And I think, well, they obviously had the desire and the motivation. And I think that's the key thing. You need to go away and ask yourself what you want.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. What do you want? Don't be jealous of what other people are achieving. Just ask yourself, what do you want for you? What's your best day at work going to look like? How would you achieve your best days at work?
Yeah.
And the great thing about coaching is it overspills beyond work into your personal life, into your social life, and it raises your own self-awareness and makes you a better person because you choose to be a better person.
Yeah, good advice. And I think, we've spoken very much about coaching in this session, focused on the teaching side of things. Don't forget, if you are a DIA member, one of the USPs of DIA is the diversity of people who work within it. We're not all ADIs, and that can be a benefit as much as it can be a detraction. Most of the training team are experienced driver trainers, but we also have people who are legal, financial, marketing, and business professionals who've got a lot of longevity in businesses large and small. So if you are thinking about coaching in general, don't just make it aligned to your teaching. Coaching is really useful for helping you develop the business side of things as well. And so we're always very happy to do one-on-one coaching sessions with our members if they call and ask for myself or Karen Bransgrove, who have business coaching qualifications and also have the experience of working in multiple businesses, big and large. Very happy to spend some time on a Zoom or on telephone, as we do when we're on the help desk, taking single issues that you need coaching with, or larger macro issues, as in, how do I take my business forward? How do I diversify? Do I start taking on franchisees because my business is growing? All those questions, we can help coach you to strategies that you can take and decisions you can make rather than just telling you what to do. So always think about those kind of aspects of coaching being useful to you, as well as going and speaking to people like Graham about developing the side and delivering that into your teaching. Well, thanks, Graham. I think it's been really informative, really, really interesting for everybody on the. Thanks to the delegates today for tuning in and giving us your time. It's a very busy time, but also for your questions and stimulating some of that debate as well. And we hope to see you soon. You can always watch this back on the Academy. The webinar will be streamed back onto the website as well, plus lots of other free webinars that you might find useful in your daily work or developing your business. But in the meantime, stay safe out there and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for turning up.
Thanks, Graham.
Cheers.
Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.